How's married life so far?
So far, so good. I
Yep.
mean, honestly, not much has changed. We had a house, lived together, dog. I mean, there was a lot that we already kind of had. So it's just more, I guess. I got my name changed and now we're legally married.
Yeah, that's awesome. How was the name
Oh,
changing thing? Was that like a lot of headache?
it was yes and no. So I think that there was some factors of that I didn't really like changing my name at the DMV. I had to schedule an appointment, and trying to get an appointment was obnoxiously difficult. So I felt like it was kind of one of those things where it wasn't, once I was there, I had all the documents. It was quick to go through. I was in and out in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, which is amazing for the DMV. But like actually getting the appointment, I would go online, check, and they're like, no appointments in your area. Next day, go online, same thing. And then finally I got one and I'm like, this is a win.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't think it would be that hard, but yeah,
No,
all
I
those
mean, I would
unexpected things.
say sitting at the DMV for hours. So
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I don't think I've ever seen you with your hair down, not to switch topics, but that looks great. Do you usually wear it down?
Um, yes, I also just got it cut. So,
Oh,
like
okay.
in the past, I've not had the bangs, so those are new.
Okay.
We're still figuring it out.
Oh, looks good. I like it. Um, well, I
Thank
mean,
you.
in the interest of respecting your time, I figure we can just kind of get going. The whole point of this I is just trying to touch base with couples that I worked with in hopes that some of the things that you share or some of your thoughts will be helpful to other couples. So, ultimately what I'd like to do is start, sharing these as sort of short little clips,
Mhm.
so that people who are just starting the process themselves might get, save themselves some headache and also get some good advice for what they should be looking for. So,
Yeah, that's
Okay.
awesome.
so with that said, why don't we just get right into the first question? And obviously, planning a wedding is a huge task. Um, what were some of the biggest shocks you guys got when you started that process?
Yeah. Um, I think some of it was realizing how much there was to do. I think, or I guess I didn't really realize how many pieces there were to everything. A lot of small details, a lot of things I wouldn't have ever even realized were part of planning a wedding. Just a lot of different moving pieces. The venue we picked was all like you had to figure everything out on your own. Nothing was included except the bar. So from like catering to like photographer, videographer, florals,
DJ.
DJ, literally everything was on us to figure out. Um, which is there, I guess there's good and bad with that because obviously then you can find people and vendors that you really want to work with and like to work with versus just being like, okay, here's the option that the venue has. So I thought that was kind of a nice piece of that. But at the same time, it adds a lot to your plate because it's now researching and finding people that you want to have at your wedding.
Yeah, a lot of
I think the other thing, oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say probably a lot more interviews than you wanted to try to finally make a
Time. Yeah.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was we did a lot of like research on the back end to make sure that the people that we were interviewing or talking with were people that we felt strongly enough about to kind of get to that point, just to save their time, to save our time, because our heads were spinning from time to time with that. Um, but yeah. And then the other thing, and I have a few notes written down, but the other thing that I think really shocked us was obviously inflation has been wild over the last couple of years. And we had almost an 18-month engagement. So from the initial when we set our budget versus by the time the day actually came, a lot of things had changed. And I think trying to find the balance of, things that were still in budget, but then also getting everything we wanted was a balancing act big time.
Yeah, I heard some of those horror stories and still do even of some of the couples where they get like a quote on the venue and the plated meal. And then, 2 weeks before their wedding, it's like a 20% increase. And they're like, that's like $5,000. What do you mean? Like
Yep.
Yeah.
pretty crazy how that can happen.
One little line item in the contract that says that they can adjust it for the cost of
Inflation.
whatever up to a certain extent. And
Did you find that that's actually kind of a helpful piece of knowledge? Did you find that that was standard practice among every venue? That clause was in there that they could change pricing with no notice?
I know we
The-
saw it with catering. It had to
and
do
the
with like the
bar.
cost of food. Oh, and the bar, sure. Where there's like, I guess, goods that could range in the cost for them. They could adjust the cost for us to
Up to a certain percentage.
yeah.
I would say something that I guess like piece of advice, which I know isn't really the question, but piece of advice would be read through every contract. Like actually look through it. Do not just sign it and both of you sign it. Because it is both of our weddings. So like for those should be reading through it and not just blindly agreeing to things. Because I think those were things
too.
and invoices. Yes. Reading through everything you're getting. The catering, yeah, there was some stuff on the catering that ended up, and this is not necessarily negative. I think it was just changing people throughout the course of the time from when we initially signed with them. There were changes or things added on the invoice that we weren't getting. So just obviously making sure that we weren't spending money that we didn't need to be spending.
Yeah, but it was an issue with the bar, with catering, and with the venue. It was probably $1,500 to $2,000 of
just keeping an eye on
not that it was
things.
like malicious by them, but just too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands on different contracts, different invoices that things were missed in emails that ended up being charged that shouldn't have been. That I don't know, she probably saved us $1,500 and stuff that.
And just paying attention. And I really don't think it was done maliciously. Like genuinely, I think it was just a fluke. So
Well, I would appreciate 1,500 in savings if somebody else caught it. So good job on that. Yeah. So just costs and due diligence and not assuming that everything is right. Assume everything's wrong and double check it.
Exactly.
Double check everything. Yes.
All right. Very good. So let's move on then to when you started all of your hunting for all of your different creative vendors and venue and all that. I'm always curious, was video from the get-go, was it a priority? Was it a luxury? Was it something that you were like, well, we can add on at the end if budget allows? And then what were the qualities or the indicators that you were looking for when you did decide to start looking for video?
Yeah. I think it was kind of somewhere in between the priority and a luxury. I think it was one of those things we really, really wanted. So we did our research to say, hey, is this something that we can find room in the budget for? But then also finding somebody, I mean, you can find a vendor at just about any budget price point, but also somebody in both the person and then also the quality of their work. Is that, what we like? Is it somebody that we vibe well with and, we can get along and work with? Obviously that was something that was important in, finding somebody. And then we wanted somebody that was, local to the Southeast Wisconsin area, the Milwaukee area, just being that that's where our wedding was. Something we really wanted also was to support a smaller business versus a large media company. I think that that's just something that's important to me, but then also I feel like you get to actually work with the people that you're talking with versus, you have a salesperson, then you have somebody who's just assigned and then that's it. I think there's pros and cons again to both, but just, something that we were looking for. And then obviously the style of the videos, the shooting, the angles, even just like the editing style is something that we really looked for. I know that we looked at a lot of different videographers, just I guess in full transparency, of finding somebody that had a lot of those things. And, you know, I felt like you hit on a lot of the positives of what we wanted and, you know, checked off all those boxes, along with just being easy to work with. So
Well, that's very nice. Thank you. And I'm glad. Of course, that it worked out the way it did because you had quite a spectacular wedding. That was a lot of
Thank
fun. The boat ride was a nice, very nice touch. And I really liked the venue too. I thought it was super cool with all the old bank vault doors and marble. It was a very classy stuff. The question is what was it in particular that made you know it was time to, you know, move forward and get a contract with me? Was it was it the stuff you saw before you reached out? Was it stuff I sent after? Was it communication? At what point were you confident that this was going to be a good choice?
I don't know if this is a great specific answer to your question, but I think that you continued to check those boxes along the way. So we liked what we saw when we were looking at your videos on your website or on social media or wherever we found them. But then having the first and second call, whatever it was with you, the communication was good. It seemed like you were willing to work with us.
sorry, dog.
Willing to work with us. I think you saw our vision. Your package included, again, all of the boxes we wanted to check, and there just weren't any red flags or things that we saw that wouldn't fit exactly what we were looking for. So I guess you didn't really give us a reason to look elsewhere.
Excellent. Now, when it comes to all the finished edits, because I mean, obviously you can watch somebody's work and you'll get an idea of their editing style. But I presume that you sort of had like a preconceived notion or a vision of what you had hoped your wedding video would look like, picturing all the colors and the locations and all that. So the question is, when it came to the edits that you did receive, did you feel like it captured the story well? Were there any particular visuals or shots that I captured, that things that you missed and were surprised to see and were happy? Or, and then kind of just, you know, when you got the video, did it fall short, meet, or exceed the expectations of what you were sort of hoping to receive?
Yeah, I think overall it definitely exceeded expectations, at least for me personally. I think that there was a lot of things that, I mean, the day goes so fast. We had 100 people. There's a lot going on. There's, you know, we were on the boat. We had obviously the ceremony. We had the first look and doing our private vows. So there was so many of those things that, like, it's all moving so fast that I almost feel like your brain can only like process so much information in that moment at that time. So sorry, got the dog. So I think that there was a lot of things that we were able to, or we just naturally missed because there is so many people and so much going on. I know that there was pieces from the boat, just like little goofy things that people were doing, that it was so cool to look back and be like, oh my God, I loved seeing that. This is so cool, so fun. One of the like super random things was during the speeches, the best man speech, which was his brother. He talks with his hands a lot. And it's like the inside joke that he always does, like the Italian like thing. And watching it back and seeing how many times he did it, well, I was cracking up because like in the moment I didn't realize that was happening. So of course we had to like give him a hard time about that. I was just like, of course you did, Joey. So like just like little things like that was super cool to kind of go back on. I think like going to the point of, if you like captured it in the way that we were hoping, so something I know we talked about was not wanting like a super sappy video, because that's just not our vibe at all. And I think that was also part of why we went with you, is because I didn't feel like all of your sample videos were like that. And I feel like you did a really good job of, making it fit us. So I think that was something that, I really appreciated because that's just not our vibe. So yeah, I thought you did a good job with that.
Great. Yeah, yours was interesting. Sometimes you never really know when you're going to get a little bit of like a creative block in the beginning where you're just like not quite sure. You try out a couple songs, you try out a couple variations of putting footage together, and you're like, just it's not quite right. It took me a little while to sort of get going with the intro, and doing that little teaser helped me kind of settle into a vibe. But that very dynamic and fast-paced, multiple clips stacking on top and stuff, I don't always do it that way. So I wasn't sure if you'd like it or not, because it was a little bit of a variation of my normal. But
I really
Yeah.
liked that, like the bold music at the beginning with like the flashing of the pictures. Like I was showing people at work and they're like, "Oh my God, I got chills watching that. That's so cool. It's like a movie trailer."
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm really glad you like it. That like I said, that was once I got done with it, I'm like, well, if they hate it, I'll change it. But I thought it was kind of a very good way to hook people into the rest and get them interested in your day, just because it was just so grand. There were so many locations and textures and colors and the boat ride. So yeah, that was definitely a great wedding. I guess just this question will be directed more directly to couples who are planning just in general.
Mhm.
If you had to give some parting advice to couples who are just getting going, and I know you touched a little bit in the beginning on some of it, but if you were going to bullet point a few things, like what would you recommend them use, like if resources you used or things to steer clear of um, as they begin their journey planning?
I'm trying to think of where to start. No, I think that there's going to be people that are surrounding you, whether it's parents, bridal party, friends, whoever that want to help. Um, Obviously take the help. Like that's something that these people are also excited for, especially if they're willing to help you to take it. But also at the end of the day, remember that it is your wedding and that like the most important thing is it's about you and your future spouse. So obviously it was about me and Dominic, and we had a vision for our day, and that was something that we weren't afraid to tell people no if it's not what we wanted. And that's okay to do. So I think that was something that was important, or a piece of advice that I would give. The other thing that I would say is that if there's red flags along the way, trust your gut. Listen to those things if there are things that come up. Just trust yourself and things like you want this to be the best day of your life, and those are things that will help improve upon that. I don't know, what other advice would you have?
I guess I could more or less build off of what you were saying. So like we kept a lot of things pretty to ourselves. We found that a lot of the things that we wanted to do with our wedding weren't super traditional, or things that maybe our parents did for their wedding or our grandparents did for their wedding. And if we started to share what we were doing, we were immediately hit with, "Oh, why are you doing that?" Or traditionally, you're supposed to do blank. Um, and we found it easier to just keep a lot of our plans to ourselves, knowing that it would work out in the end and not deal with some of that blowback along the way, or have to explain ourselves to every last person on every last decision we made.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
that's a good.
So you don't let yourself get steamrolled, is what you're saying. Stand your ground.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Did you find some of those difficult moments? Did you choose to deal with them, or to voice your opinion or say no? Did you find it better to do it via text, via a phone call, face to face? How did you handle some of the challenging or uncomfortable moments along the way?
Yeah, I think when it was, I'll kind of answer this in two parts. If it's parent related, it was, or like friends or families, like it was something that was just kind of more like in the moment conversations. I think some of the struggles that we had with vendors were over the phone conversation. I would say have everything followed up in an email, have everything documented. Maybe that's the HR side of me talking. But I think that that's obviously only going to, help if, you need to refer back to things. I always think having a conversation face to face is usually the best. I think things can get misconstrued via text or email. But
Y'all,
again, obviously.
y'all caps texters. It's all
But I also think too, like having that follow up in writing is good, because otherwise it's, just, my word versus theirs. So I think it's a balance of both for sure.
very smart. Yeah, if it's not recorded in text, it didn't happen. And it can deny. Very smart. That's great advice. I appreciate your time, and it's good to see you guys kind of face to face again here and just touch base. And I appreciate answering some of the questions about your experience with me, and then also some of that really good advice that you did pass along that people may not have considered. So thank you, and I wish you guys the best of luck. Of course, if you need anything in the future, children's birthday parties, graduations, things like that, you know who to call.
All right.
Sounds good. Might be a few years. We'll keep it in mind.
Take your time. All right,
All
cool.
right, thank
Great to see you. See you later.